There are a few levels in Duke Nukem 3D that make statements when the players play through them, from the amazing imagery and the level's layout through to the execution of encounters and how the game balances something fresh with something expected. Flood Zone is one of those levels I think that makes a bold statement the moment you step into it. Whether that's a good statement or a bad one is down to how much you can tolerate underwater encounters. Flood Zone showcases part of LA submerged in deep water. Buildings are crumbling into the abyss and their interiors are flooding with water and aliens. It creates an interesting battlescape as the roofs of these buildings plays host to breakneck encounters and some very harsh difficulty spikes. Players have to navigate this web of underwater madness and rooftop pain in order to get to the end of a level, and I personally love it. It's a level that stuck with me from the first time I played it. It's cinematic in execution, grand in the way that it plays out, and feels like a unique outing. The fact that it all fits so seamlessly together is a testament to the high quality that this episode was putting on the table, although I know some people do not agree with that assessment. It's one of the levels in Duke Nukem 3D which really homes in on environmental danger. Everything in this level feels dangerous, like it's out to get you and drag you into the depths of the rising water. You're forced to hunt down oxygen, and if you're careless with the encounters, they become more deadly if you're not paying attention. The Nintendo 64 version of this level adds a lot more into the mix, adding in more interior areas and showcasing the devastation playing out on a greater scale. I actually kinda prefer the Nintendo 64 version of this level for the pacing and direction that it takes. However, the original has always stuck with me as a great outing regardless. I'm not the biggest lover of underwater encounters in Duke Nukem 3D, but I do enjoy them for the most part of this level. You're given plenty of space to move around, retreat or find refuge. The level is bursting with secrets and items stashed away which can help turn the tide of battle even quicker. You'll be fighting in large open spaces and then fighting in underwater cramped corridors against octobrains that are desperate to take you out. All of this sounds great, unless of course you hate underwater encounters, and the thing with this level is that it's not going to change your mind on that if you really don't like them. But what I do appreciate is that this level is designed in such a way that it's entirely possible to skip large sections of a level if you bring in the right tools from previous levels. So even if you don't like the level, there's a way to get through it pretty quickly. The other big complaint I see against this level is that its non-linear design leads to a lot of exploration, sometimes too much, and I can kinda see what people mean by this, in particular when the way forward isn't always super obvious. First playthroughs of this level can feel exhausting as there are multiple ways through the level and none of them are signposted strongly to the player. The blue key, for example, requires you to either bring in a jetpack from the previous level or find this weird open section which lets you rise up into the area with the blue key. It's not very well signposted and most players will probably miss it unless they're looking around very closely. It feels a bit odd that this is the way that you're meant to get an essential blue key. As said, not every part of this level is going to win everyone over, but it's a level that I enjoy my time with. I also think everything after the red key card is a bit weak. After a level of facing off against octobrains for the most part, it would have been nice if they'd thrown something a bit different in here. As said, not every part of this level is going to win everyone over, but it's a level that I do enjoy my time with, even if I do see the flaws in it. It has enough variety in its visuals to set a grand stage, and I personally love how the story of this level plays out, with the player emerging from a cave into this absolute ball of chaos which unfolds the more you explore. Flood Zone is a good time for me, and it's a level that I think showcases the ability of Duke Nukem to tell great stories through environments and sequences. Its variety in combat has always appealed to me, and while I think the two Battle Lords encounters are borderline obnoxious, it's never enough to make me hate this one outright. There's just something special about wandering out to that cave, seeing the flooded buildings and diving right in. It feels like a grand adventure's about to unfold, and it's one of the levels in Duke Nukem 3D that truly captures that sense. As I said, this is a level that I really rate highly, but I can also understand why a lot of people simply do not like it. But with the high bar of quality set across Shrapnel City, I think Flood Zone more than earns its spot on this level roster. It's a great atmospheric outing that I think delivers perfectly on the concept that it's trying to deliver. What I really like about Flood Zone is the fact that it's so chaotic, it's so in your face. There's a lot of things going on in this level, and I feel that there's a lot of little traps, little surprises that catch players off guard. I also kind of love this at the start where we can see the building top over there, but we can also see that we are not able to sort of get over there. We have to sort of make our way across that chasm without, any sort of thing. Obviously, if we had a jetpack from the previous levels, we could just fly over there. And again, one of the things that Duke Nukem does really well, levels may appear to have structure, and they do have a consistent structure, but if you bring in items from previous levels, they can really help you out, and they can also let you skip through most of a level if you're not a fan of it. But what I really like about Flood Zone in particular, I think it's one of the best levels that actually makes use of underwater combat. I feel that there's quite a lot of times in Duke Nukem 3D where underwater combat just doesn't feel that interesting or that exciting. But I find that with this level, there's just enough variety in the combat, and I think that there's enough space for the player to make use of, that a lot of the combat situations that you have underwater here, they actually end up being quite fun. It's really interesting to see all these spaces underwater. It really does feel different. It feels interesting in the context of all the Duke Nukem levels we've seen so far. And I always feel the sign of a good quality Duke Nukem 3D level is when you are able to have all these different elements coming together to make the whole level just feel that much better. And with Flood Zone, you're not just fighting underwater, you do eventually go back above the water, and that plays a big part in the level. But when you're underwater, it feels intimidating, it feels intense, because you never feel truly safe. One thing I will point out, I actually slightly prefer the Nintendo 64 version of this level. The Nintendo 64 version of this level actually adds in quite a bit of extra content, and I actually appreciate the changes it makes, because I think it makes the level even better. And the things that it adds in a building where you kind of have to go inside, it adds apartments. It really does kind of add to that frantic energy. It's very hard to kind of articulate why this level just has that kind of chaotic energy, because as you can see, there's just enemies all over the place, and we're not being directed to face them, but obviously it's better for us if we take these guys out as quickly as possible. Now I'm surprised that one didn't hit him. That looked like it hit him on the head. But from an aesthetic point of view, I think this level is just super interesting. It makes great use of the spaces, the collapsed sort of buildings and the flooding to create these interesting areas where you're forced to face off against these enemies who obviously have an advantage in those kind of spaces. One thing I also like in the N64 version, to the left here, there's actually a helipad, and it's just little touches like that that really help to build out the world. This level does love its Battle Lord ambushes. You get two of these in the level, and we'll get one when we wander over to where that Battle Lord is there. You can see we can't go through the red key door yet, but we can stay up here and wander around if we really want to. Head back underwater here. Now, one of the bigger critiques I see about this level is that it's quite wide, it's quite hard to sort of find your way, and I do kind of understand that. You have to sort of explore every nook and cranny if you want to find the path forward. Finding the blue door here, for example, it might be a bit difficult to spot that this is actually a blue door, because obviously it's hidden on the side wall on the inside of that little alcove. But I kind of like coming into these buildings here and seeing the sort of corrupt state that this room here is in. We're not going to pick that health up. One thing I think Shrapnel City does incredibly well, it creates this overarching sense of every level belongs in this level set. It really does feel, just from the way that the levels are kind of put together, the way that they all share similar themings, it really does feel like one big giant city that you're slowly working your way through. And this, in my opinion, creates the grandest sense of scale in this episode, because it really does feel like you are really having a sort of exploration of a giant cityscape. Even though when you look at it, there really isn't that much to this space. I think this level really does a good job of verticality and making everything feel a lot bigger than it actually is. There we go. There's a secret jetpack up here, which we can grab. Having a jetpack on this level means you get to skip quite a lot of it. Whenever I used to arrive on this level when I was playing through this as a kid, I used to really just love like everything about this level. I think as I've kind of got a bit older and I've kind of come back to visit it a few more times, it's not quite as impressive upon like, you know, the 100th time you've played it, but I do appreciate what this level brings to the table. And I know that this level, it splits opinions pretty drastically. There's quite a lot of people who love it, but then there's some who don't like it, and I get that. It's a level that I think really does sort of go all in on that kind of chaotic energy, and it just has that vibe. And to be honest, the fact that Shrapnel City has so many quality levels in it, it's a testament to the fact that this level might not be considered among some people's favorites. It might just be considered an okay level in a great episode. For me personally, I actually really like this one. I rank this among my favourite Duke Nukem 3D levels, although quite a lot of Shrapnel City does end up in that same position, because to be honest, there's very few levels in Shrapnel City that I outright dislike. But again, I love the Duke Nukem 3D way that it builds these spaces. It makes them feel intense because you feel like you're trapped in this space with all these octobrains and your oxygen's running out. It's just a big rush for me, and I really like how this level loops back on itself. It comes back around. It's not just creating new spaces just for the sake of it. You feel like you are exploring the space thoroughly and you're getting to experience all the different aspects of it. Bit pointless grabbing that scuba gear this late into the level because we're not really going to be underwater too much more. But overall, I love this level. I like I said, it's among my favourites in all of Duke Nukem 3D. The scale, the way it looks, the feel, the vibes, the music, the encounters, it all comes together and marries into this very fun experience for me that, while I think there are technically better levels in this episode in particular, Hotel Hell, I'm looking right at you, I do think that this is definitely, in my opinion, among the best levels in Duke 3D. Now, I don't want to die here because that would be pretty embarrassing. So we're going to take care of the octobrains here. I think this ending to the level is a bit weak. I'm not super lover of this ending. But again, one thing I love about Shrapnel City is that all the levels are so interconnected that it feels like you're moving from one story to another story. It feels like chapters in the same book, and I really do appreciate that attention to detail. It's something that a lot of first-person shooters don't really strive for, and Flood Zone for me, great level. In my opinion, it definitely is among the best in Duke Nukem 3D, and I think they achieves that through all the things that I've said, the encounters, the music. There are very few low points in Shrapnel City, and Flood Zone for me is one of the very high points. I would definitely put it in the top 3 levels in Shrapnel City, and when I eventually get around to ranking all the Duke Nukem 3D levels, it's going to place very high on my list, just because of all the stuff I said. I would show you the Nintendo 64 version of this level, but I'm planning to do a full playthrough of that very soon, specifically so I can go through and talk about all the differences in the levels. So I'll hold off on doing that for now, but let me know what you think of Flood Zone. Are you a fan of it? Are you not a fan of it? Do you think it's overrated or underrated? Let me know, and thank you so much for watching.